Hey everyone, I'm a medical doctor and researcher. Before we dive in, if you stick around and find this useful, do me a favor and hit subscribe. I put out content like this regularly, breaking down the actual science behind fat loss, metabolic health, and performance in a way that's actually usable, not just theory. Let's talk about insulin, because this one hormone is arguably the single biggest switch that determines whether your body is in fat storage mode or fat burning mode. Maybe you've noticed this in yourself. You eat slightly more carbs than usual, or even just look at a plate of pasta, and somehow you feel puffier the next morning. Or maybe the diet and training routine that used to work like clockwork for you has suddenly stopped delivering results, even when you scale up the effort. If that sounds familiar, there's a good chance insulin resistance is the hidden variable nobody told you about. And this isn't rare. Research indicates that close to 45% of adults between the ages of 18 and 44 show signs of insulin resistance. Stop and think about that for a second. That's almost 1 out of every 2 people you know, walking around with a metabolism that's quietly working against them. I've personally dealt with this. And my mother had something even more serious. She was pre-diabetic. Using the 4 principles I'm about to walk you through in this video, we managed to reverse her insulin resistance, pull her back out of pre-diabetes, and keep both of us in a metabolic state where fat loss actually happens consistently. I've used this exact framework to drop stubborn belly fat multiple times over the years, and I use the same 4 principles with virtually every client I work with. Here's the thing about these 4 rules. They're simple to understand, but the implementation is where most people fall apart. So in this video, I'm not just going to give you the theory. I'm going to show you exactly how to put each one into practice, step by step, so there's no ambiguity left by the time we're done. To give you a preview of what's coming, rule number 1 involves a 10-second exercise that research shows actually outperforms 30 minutes of walking for blood sugar control. Rule number 3 involves an over-the-counter supplement that's been compared directly to one of the most commonly prescribed diabetes medications in the world. And the final rule is going to completely shift how you think about not just what you eat, but when you eat it. Let's get into it. Understanding insulin. The librarian analogy. Before the 4 rules will make sense, you need to understand how insulin actually works, because once this clicks, everything else becomes intuitive. Picture your body as a library. Inside that library, you've got bookshelves, and in this analogy, your bookshelves are your muscles and your liver. The books arriving at the library are carbohydrates, and the librarian, whose entire job is to take incoming books and place them correctly on the shelves, is insulin. Under normal, healthy conditions, this system works beautifully. Carbohydrates come in, insulin shows up, escorts them to the muscles and liver, and everything gets stored neatly where it should be, ready to be used as fuel. But there are 3 situations where this breaks down. 1, the librarian gets tired, meaning insulin sensitivity declines over time from inactivity or chronic overload. 2, too many books show up at once, meaning a flood of carbohydrates hits the system faster than it can be processed. 3, both of these happen simultaneously, which is incredibly common in modern diets and modern lifestyles. When any of these scenarios occur, the librarian doesn't have time to properly shelve everything. So what happens? The books get shoved under the rug instead. And that rug, in this analogy, is your body fat. Once you understand this mechanism, the 4 golden rules I'm about to give you will make perfect sense, because each one is designed to manipulate a different part of this exact system. Golden rule number 1. The conveyor belt system. What if there was a way to bypass the librarian altogether? What if your muscles had a hidden door that let carbohydrates walk straight into storage without insulin needing to do anything at all? That system actually exists, and I call it the conveyor belt theory. Research has shown that your muscle tissue contains a transport mechanism called GLUT4. Think of it as a hidden door, separate from the main entrance the librarian uses. Whenever your muscles physically contract and relax, this door opens automatically, and carbohydrates get pulled directly into the muscle for storage, completely bypassing the need for insulin. This is huge because it means we can put your body into a more fat-burning favorable state just by triggering muscle contraction at the right time. The simplest way to do this is walking. specifically walking right after a meal. 10 minutes of post-meal walking is enough to repeatedly trigger that contract relax cycle, opening up GLUT4 transport and clearing glucose from your bloodstream without insulin having to work overtime. But here's the part that surprised even me. There's a recent study that compared a 30-minute walk to something far simpler, doing 10 air squats every 45 minutes throughout the day, and the squats won. The researchers found a 14 to 15% greater reduction in blood glucose levels with the squat protocol compared to the walking protocol. Why would that be the case? Think about which muscles are the largest in your entire body. Your glutes, followed by your quads. When you activate the biggest muscle groups you have, you create the biggest possible demand for glucose, which means more of that conveyor belt door gets thrown open at once. So here's my actual recommendation, and I want to be clear, I'm not telling you to abandon walking. Walking is still excellent, and I want you doing it. But if you're someone who's desk-bound most of the day, who can't realistically step outside for a 10-minute walk after every meal, this is your alternative. Set a timer for every 45 minutes and knock out 10 air squats. It takes 10 seconds. There's no excuse not to fit that in, even in the middle of a workday. And ideally, combine both. Air squats during the day when you're stuck at a desk, and a walk after your larger meals when you have the time. One more layer to this. The bigger your muscles are overall, the bigger your conveyor belt becomes. More muscle mass means more capacity to absorb incoming carbohydrates like a sponge. This is exactly why I recommend resistance training 3 to 4 times per week alongside everything else in this video. You're not just building muscle for aesthetics, you're literally expanding your body's ability to handle carbohydrates without storing them as fat. Golden rule number 2, posting bouncers at the door. If the librarian is going to be overwhelmed no matter what, the next best strategy is controlling how fast books are arriving at the library in the first place. I call this posting bouncers at the entrance, and there are 2 specific bouncers I want you to use, and I'm going to show you how to combine them. The first bouncer is apple cider vinegar. The active compound in apple cider vinegar is acetic acid, and it does 2 important things. First, it slows the breakdown of carbohydrates in your digestive system. Second, it slows gastric emptying, meaning food, and therefore sugar, takes longer to actually enter your bloodstream. Combined, these 2 effects significantly shorten and flatten the resulting blood glucose spike after a meal. Research has consistently shown that people who consume apple cider vinegar roughly 10 minutes before a meal see meaningfully improved post-meal blood glucose readings. The second bouncer is psyllium husk. This is a soluble fiber that, when combined with water, forms a thick, gel-like substance in your stomach. That gel physically slows down how quickly sugars and carbohydrates pass into your bloodstream. The same principle applies to other fiber sources like oats and chia seeds, but psyllium husk tends to be the most potent and convenient option. Now here's how to actually put this into practice. I recommend preparing this drink before your 2 largest, most carbohydrate-heavy meals of the day. Start with 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. And please, make sure it contains the mother, which is the raw, unfiltered form with the beneficial compounds intact. Dilute this in a tall glass of water. Do not drink apple cider vinegar straight or undiluted. It's highly acidic and can damage your tooth enamel and irritate your esophagus over time. Next, add roughly 1 teaspoon of psyllium husk to that same glass. If you're new to fiber supplementation or have a more sensitive digestive system, start with half a teaspoon instead. Here's the critical part. Drink this mixture quickly after mixing it. Psyllium husk absorbs water rapidly and will continue thickening the longer it sits, so you want to drink it before it becomes too gel-like to swallow comfortably. Immediately after, drink a full additional glass of plain water. This matters because psyllium husk will continue absorbing water in your digestive tract, and you need to make sure you're adequately hydrated to avoid any digestive discomfort. Do this roughly 10 minutes before your biggest meals, and you've effectively posted 2 bouncers at the door, controlling the pace at which carbohydrates flood your system. I'm genuinely curious. If any of you have tried apple cider vinegar or psyllium husk before, or this combination specifically, let me know in the comments. Did you notice better digestion, reduced hunger, or better energy stability throughout the day? I read through the comments, so don't hesitate to share your experience. Golden rule number 3, fixing the lock, not just the key. So far, We've talked about reducing the workload on the librarian and slowing down the books coming through the door. But there's a third issue that often gets completely overlooked. What if the locks themselves, meaning your cell receptors, are rusty? To understand this, you need a quick biochemistry refresher, and I promise to keep it simple. Every cell in your body has receptors on its surface, including specific receptors designed to respond to insulin. When insulin arrives and interacts with that receptor, it's essentially using a key to unlock the cell, allowing glucose to enter. But sometimes that lock becomes rusty or unresponsive. Even when the key, insulin, is present and functioning correctly, the door simply doesn't open as efficiently as it should. This is where the first supplement comes in: magnesium glycinate. Magnesium plays a direct, well-documented role in how efficiently insulin receptors function. And the reality is that most people are chronically under-consuming magnesium through diet alone. If your receptors are rusty, magnesium glycinate functions almost like a lubricant, helping insulin do its job more efficiently when it does arrive. My recommendation is 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate before bed. It's inexpensive, it's well tolerated, and frankly, it's a supplement most people should be taking regardless of insulin resistance specifically. The second supplement is berberine, a compound naturally found in plants like barberry and golden seal. Berberine works through a completely different mechanism. It activates an enzyme called AMPK, which functions as your body's master fuel sensing switch. When AMPK gets activated, it signals your cells to pull glucose directly out of the bloodstream and burn it for energy. Interestingly, exercise activates this exact same pathway naturally. Berberine essentially does it pharmacologically, even without the physical activity. Here's what makes berberine particularly compelling. Researchers have directly compared its blood glucose lowering effects against metformin, which is the most widely prescribed medication for type 2 diabetes in the world. The conclusion from that research was that berberine's effect on blood glucose was comparable to metformin's. And unlike metformin, berberine is available over the counter, without a prescription. My recommendation is 500 milligrams of berberine taken with your 2 largest meals of the day, always alongside food, since taking it on an empty stomach tends to cause digestive discomfort for some people. And as always, if you're adding any new supplement, especially one with this level of physiological impact, make sure your doctor is aware, particularly if you're currently on other medications. Golden rule number 4, working with your body's clock, not against it. This final rule is, in my opinion, the most counterintuitive of the 4, and it's the one that's going to completely change how you think about meal timing. Your body operates on a biological clock that's built directly into the DNA of individual cells. This isn't speculative wellness talk. It's well-established science known as circadian rhythm, and it governs nearly every physiological process in your body, including insulin sensitivity. Critically, this clock is not neutral throughout the day. Your insulin sensitivity is highest in the morning and progressively declines as the day goes on. That means the exact same meal, eaten at 8 a.m. versus 8 p.m., can produce a dramatically different blood sugar response. Not slightly different, dramatically different. Here's the mechanism behind this. The cells in your pancreas responsible for producing insulin have their own internal clock genes, essentially biological timers built into their DNA that regulate when those cells are most metabolically active. In the morning, these clock genes are fully switched on. Your cells respond efficiently to insulin, and glucose gets cleared from your bloodstream quickly. By the evening, those same clock genes begin winding down. Your cells become progressively less responsive to insulin as the day progresses, which means a carbohydrate-heavy meal that barely moves your blood sugar at breakfast can cause a prolonged, exaggerated spike if eaten at dinner instead, even though it's the exact same food and the exact same number of calories. There's a study published in the journal Cell Metabolism that directly tested this. Researchers found that restricting food intake to earlier hours of the day improved insulin sensitivity independent of any weight loss whatsoever. Same total calories, just an earlier eating window, and the underlying biology improved on its own. So here's the practical application. Try to eat your largest meals earlier in the day and front-load the bulk of your carbohydrate intake before roughly 3 p.m. whenever your schedule allows it. If your lifestyle simply doesn't permit a full shift like that, at minimum, Make your evening meal the lightest meal of your day. Prioritize protein and vegetables at night, and shift your carbohydrates earlier to a window when your body is actually equipped to use them efficiently. Your body is not the same metabolic machine at 8 p.m. that it is at 8 a.m. Once you internalize that and start eating in alignment with your circadian biology instead of against it, reversing insulin resistance becomes significantly easier. Fighting this rhythm is like trying to swim upstream. You can do it, but you're making the process far harder than it needs to be. Wrapping up. So there you have it, the 4 golden rules. To recap quickly, use muscle contraction, whether through walking or quick air squats, to bypass insulin entirely through the GLUT4 pathway. Slow down how fast carbohydrates enter your bloodstream using apple cider vinegar and psyllium husk before your largest meals. Support your insulin receptor function directly with magnesium glycinate and berberine. And finally, align your eating pattern with your body's natural circadian rhythm by front-loading carbohydrates earlier in the day. Let me know in the comments which of these 4 rules you're going to start implementing first, and if you've already tried any of them, share your results. I read every comment and I'll do my best to answer your questions directly. If this was helpful, subscribe for more breakdowns like this one. Until next time, keep putting one foot in front of the other, especially on the days you don't feel like it.